Hello, and welcome to another edition of Beaver Finance. I'm your host, Robert T. Anderson. In today's series, we're here to talk to you about financing a car versus leasing, and which financing option would be best for you. If you're new here, welcome. Please consider subscribing to our channel. This way, you can be notified on our future content. In this video, we are going to talk to you about the top 5 practical things that you need to consider when comparing financing a vehicle or leasing. So you won't want to miss this. So, the top 5 tips to compare when considering financing a car versus leasing. Number 1, what is the purpose of the vehicle? So you need to take a look at, am I going to be driving this vehicle for personal use or business? And am I going to be using it for both purposes? Because that can make a difference. Part of that comes down to how the accounting works, how the tracking in bookkeeping would work from your records and other expenses standpoint to what's potentially deductible, from an interest standpoint, payments or lease payment. Certainly, if you're looking for business purposes, a lease is much easier to track in terms of deductibility. So check with your accountant on that. But definitely figuring out what the purpose of the vehicle is, whether that's personal, business, or both, will help guide you through the rest of these considerations. So next, you want to look at how much do you drive per year. So hopefully you have a good indication of your previous driving record in terms of how many kilometers or how many miles you drive in a year. So if you drive, fewer than, in Canada at least, 16,000 kilometers a year or 20,000 kilometers a year, a lease will probably be a good option for you to consider because leases typically start at 16,000 kilometers per year in terms of their allowance. 20,000 is common. You can get up to 25,000 on your fixed payment term. However, if you go over your kilometers, that's where it starts to lean towards potentially financing the vehicle, because at that point there are no annual restrictions or there's no overage charges that you might have to pay when you return your vehicle. So certainly if you're a low kilometer driver, a lease might work for you. Now you do need to consider the potential resale value if you do finance a vehicle. So, obviously if you drive a lot of kilometers or a lot of miles in a year, that's going to impact your resale value quite significantly. So you might not get as much for the vehicle, but not being penalized for going over your lease, might outweigh, the potential penalty. So to ensure that, you would do the financing route. Now, if you are a low kilometer driver and you do finance a vehicle, it might be a lot more initial cash flow, but your resale value is much higher. So you need to factor that in when comparing your lease versus your purchase. Next, we want to look at how long you're going to keep the car. So if you're someone that likes that new fancy car every 2 to 4 years, and you're going to be getting a new car anyways, a lease typically always favors that situation, because a car typically does depreciate, and it does that very quickly and in the first few years. So certainly by starting out with a smaller initial monthly payment that will allow you to reach that fixed term, whether that's anywhere from 24 to 48 months, then you can get in your new vehicle quicker without penalties, and you always have that fixed monthly payment that you know you can afford, hopefully. So certainly if you do like that new vehicle, leasing is definitely a good option for you. If you plan to hold this vehicle for a long time, kind of, that saying, run your vehicle into the ground, definitely then financing will be an option for you. Certainly if you do own the vehicle, you're going to want to maintain it and keep it in good shape, so you can keep it longer than the financing term, whether that's 5 years, 6 years, 7, hopefully not longer. You definitely don't want to be paying for that car any longer than 6-7 years. So definitely, if you are going to keep the vehicle, financing can be a great option. And then eventually, if you can have that vehicle without payments, so you essentially own the vehicle outright, you can then put that money to work and potentially rebuild a car fund to essentially fund your next purchase down the line once that car is literally driven into the ground. Next consideration would be what dealership promotions are on at any given time. So usually at certain points of the year, you might hear about 0% financing or MSRP discounts, whatnot, for purchases, or a trade-in event or a lease promotion. So you will want to factor in what's timely, at any given dealership that you're considering a vehicle, because that might weigh into what option you have available to you, or if there is a certain car on the lot that might have been there for a bit, you might be able to get a better purchasing deal on it as opposed to leasing it, or if the dealership has what's called demos, so vehicles driven typically by staff. Those are typically resold after a certain amount of months, and can be brought up for a good deal for you. So definitely taking a look at the dealership promotions going on can help factor into going lease or purchase route. Last tip here, obviously we don't want to think about potential accidents, fender benders, anything that might impact the value of your vehicle. However, these are things that happen, and if you do purchase a vehicle and you do get an accident, obviously the resale value is impacted, and that's on you because you own the vehicle. However, typically if you have a lease and you get into an accident or some sort of major damage is done to the vehicle and is repaired, you have to then hold that lease till the end of the term, but then you do have the ability to just give the car back and either get into a new lease or purchase a new vehicle and not take the hit on the value of the vehicle. The dealership simply takes the vehicle, gives it back to whoever the manufacturer is, Ford, GM, Toyota. They'll send it to auction, whatnot, and vehicle's on its way. So you might want to factor in, what happens if there's an accident or a major repair. Do you want to take that risk on yourself and own the vehicle, or do you want to finance, and then if something happens, you're not taking the hit, you just have to hold the vehicle and drive it till the end of its term. So that would favor leasing for sure. Now, if you've watched any of our previous videos, you know that we like to include bonus tips. So our bonus tip today is leasing can actually give you the right to purchase that vehicle at the end of the term. So it is something else to consider when looking at leasing versus financing. So obviously if you go the financing route, you're committed to the vehicle. You're typically going to hold it for a longer period of time. And if you did end up wanting a new vehicle midterm, obviously you would have to pay off that vehicle, sell it. If you do owe more than the vehicle's worth, they can always roll that into your next vehicle, but that makes your second vehicle, more expensive, and isn't recommended. So certainly from a leasing standpoint, if you do want to keep your car, you do like it, it hasn't been in an accident, it's still affordable to you, you can decide to then finance it at the end of that term. Or pay cash, get your own financing, line of credit, a loan, roll it into your mortgage, or lots of other potential options if they make sense. So having that right to purchase that vehicle, if it's still in good shape, it's still serving your purpose, can be a great consideration for leasing a vehicle. So we hope you got a lot of value out of today's video. If you haven't already, please consider liking this video, comment below, let us know your experience with leasing or buying. Also, please subscribe. That way you can stay connected with us, get notified on future videos, as we'd love to stay connected with you. Lastly, our question of the day. So let us know in the comments below if you lease or you finance a vehicle, and tell us what's your experience. Do you have any other tips for our viewers? I'm sure they'd love to hear more. I know there are a lot of other considerations. These were obviously a few that we want to make sure you consider, but we do know there are more considerations. So leave us a comment, like this video, subscribe. We'll stay connected. Thank you for watching this video, and we'll catch you in the next episode.